And I always thought that was just like professional wrestling until I got another job. And there's like, in my job, there's people that want to do their job and people that want to keep their job. And it's like, I think it's just like human nature. And we see it on that, like in professional wrestling, we see it on that level that guys would rather that, just try to save their spot. And it's that the attitude amongst the top guys produced some good business back in the day, where guys were very trying to get more and trying to get more. But like these days when it's like, we're kind of like all this together and we got to figure out how to get like the wrestling popularity back up to where it used to be. We got to change our philosophy, I mean, did you listen to Chael Sonnen's rant recently on Raw that he had?
No.
Okay.
I like Chael though. I heard it was great, bro.
I do too. And let me give you a point what he said. And you tell me if this is a problem that you see. I know it's a problem that you see because it's a problem I see. Anybody that's been in the business when we were successful and heard the crowds back in the day and the crowds today, that's different. But what we have today is when you have two guys cutting a promo and they're and you want to put across like there's going to be violence, and then they're going in the ring and they're not fighting. They're performing. Like two guys. And I think that we see that it's very difficult to sell feuds to people if the wrestlers are just going to go out there and just you see it more often than not. People can't punch anymore. We used to get mileage out of a punch and a bump, and stuff. And then guys Austin and Brett would brawl. Rock and Austin would brawl. Carter, they'd be brawling. It's like we've taken that element out. And I honestly think that the fact that all the matches are scripted from head to toe, even though the promos aren't scripted, the matches, everybody in the business scripts their match today, that we've taken that, like, a lot of the calling in the ring stuff, a lot of the organic stuff, a lot of the basics, we've taken that out and replaced it with trying to fit 24 ounces into a 12-ounce can each match, and just all these kickouts of all these false finishes and all these devastating moves. I think when people try to engage in this product that used to watch it, it's just too busy for them. It's like it's not a simple product anymore with good guy versus bad guy, heel versus baby fight. Every match is like complicated, all these spots and dives and stuff, and you try to call it. It's like it's hard to call a match these days. It's constant action where guys aren't slowing down and like you grab. I mean, people say like, "Oh, rest holds are boring." It's like, yeah, but that's 15 seconds where the announcer can talk about you.
They're afraid
about your character. It's like
talents are afraid to slow down, Disco. They're afraid to slow down because they goddamn can't work well. They have no confidence. They can't slow down. I'm afraid to stop. It's like my life. I'm 68 years old. My wife's dead. I've got all these projects doing. I'm living in a house right now. I'm by myself, like you guys may or may not be. I'm an empty nester, man. I'm afraid to stop, and the boys are afraid to stop. I tell them this all the time. You've got to stop and let me process so I can get you over. I can't get you over saying, ooh, oh, wow, look at that. Oh, man, do you see that? Bullshit. Come on.
Or JR, or get yourself over, because I'll give you an example. Like, I was watching a match that me and Disco had from like 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And it was just an easy, simple, basic, match. But everybody was into the match because when Disco was hitting me, I was just selling, letting him work the crowd, letting the announcer do his thing. Then you know what I'm saying? It was just a real simple psychological match.
Yeah.
Now today, I'll give you an example. I went to the show and I was the manager of this guy, right? And they wanted me to like give him the rub. So during the match, I'm like, hey, bro, turn around and work the crowd. Turn around and work the crowd. And I had to slide into the ring and tell him, and he still didn't do it. And then after the match, I'm like, bro, why weren't you working the crowd? He goes, well, I don't know what you mean. I go, what do you mean you don't know what I mean?
Wow.
Get the crowd with you. First of all, he didn't know what I mean. And then he told me, he goes, I was trying to remember what came next. They're so busy trying to remember what comes next that they forget little things. You know what I'm saying?
They forget. They're trying to remember where to do their leg slaps.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Bro, I know how frustrated. But Jim, the thing about that is though, is as a fan, you're watching that. When you're watching 9 guys on a show slapping their legs, it's like, come on, guys. This looks, it's like you're exposing too much. And we keep trying to, again, as an old school guy, I always get flack, oh, you're out of touch. This is like, I'm like, guys, there's still some elements of old school wrestling that work, but you guys just don't do it enough, but they still work. And I think the fact that these guys script everything A to Z, literally the whole match from front, top to bottom. And instead of but back in the day, we call a few spots and called mostly the rest in the ring because you were trying to feel the crowd and do things that would pop the crowd. Now it's just like, we always blame, there's always been a lot of blame being placed on creative. The reason wrestling, the creative things creative. I'm like, guys, I'm like, the work isn't helping. There's only a couple guys that really stick out that have like that old school and new school mentality figured out together. It's like a lot of you guys just look like you're just going out there and each guy is trying to get his shit in. And that's what every match looks like. And then, honest, let me ask you a question. Do you think the matches are too long in AEW?
No.
Here's
put it this way. It depends on who's booked. We've had some matches. Yes, of course. We've had some matches that we may have misjudged on the booking and give them a little bit more time than they needed. But as a rule, I think that our match times are pretty decent, especially in the beginning of the show and the end of the show where you're trying to, get a big finish and start and stop well. I think they've done a pretty good job in that regard. So like Jericho is going to do a match, and he'll tell you what his storytelling is, to me, is terrific, and he's sharing that with like Santana and Ortiz. Who I love that young team. I love those kids. They're good kids. They try hard. They got good hearts. I got a lot of time for Santana and Ortiz. A lot of time. Sammy Guevara is going to be a star if he doesn't go get hurt doing some of the crazy shit that he does. Yeah. He's a good-looking young kid. And I say this on TV, and I'm not doing it just for hyperbole. He does remind me of Eddie. Not Eddie. Is he going to be as good as Eddie? I don't know if anybody will ever be as good as Eddie. Okay? I don't know that. But I know this kid's got some great potential. And so I look at those guys like this Darby Allin. He's young Jeff Hardy. Yeah. He's a wiry, body type, similar. He does unusual things that are usually ill-advised. But he's fearless. So, and he's different. He's different. He's different.
Let me ask you this. I had a theory on Darby Allin and Orange Cassidy that the reason that they're so over, right? And you tell me if you agree with this or not, because I think I've figured this out, but I may be wrong, and I probably am wrong. But so when I see Orange Cassidy, we see guys wrestling every match, all the guys do the dive off the top. And the guys are standing there and catching him and everything. But like, what's the one thing that Orange Cassidy does and the one thing that Darby Allin does that's like different? When Orange Cassidy does his dive over the top rope, he does it with his hands in his pockets.
Right.
Or when Darby Allin does the dive off the top rope, he does it backwards.
Coffin drop,
They've taken two simplistic moves that everybody does and just done them differently than everybody else does. And developed a character that's unique and different that has mannerisms that you can impersonate. And I just think that honestly the reason they were so over to begin with is the fans would pop because they pop at all the spots and the dives and everything. But it's like, here comes the no hands guy, and there's a big pop. It's like, here comes the backward splash guy, and then there's a big pop. And then they develop these personas about them, and I think that's why they stick out. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, they're different. They create a reason that you want to watch them. I will tell you, I was not a Orange Cassidy fan when I first saw him, the character. I even asked Excalibur, who's called a lot of his matches, tell me why I should like this kid. What is it about him that I'm missing? And we talked about it, and I saw him work more. I opened my mind up, not being so stubborn. And now he's growing. He's selling as much merchandise just about as anybody we got, and that's a lot of merch. So somebody's buying his stuff, and if you're not over, why would they? They're not going to buy your stuff. They don't buy stuff of a guy that's not over. Bottom line.
Hey, Jim, I want to ask you one thing on this. You've seen the Meltzer Cornette feud evaporate and stuff, or the relationship. Is one guy right and one guy wrong? Are both
Probably
of them
not.
wrong, or are both of them right?
They're both right. They're both right because all they're doing is expressing an opinion. Mm-hmm. How can anybody's opinion necessarily be wrong unless we're going to be like a lot of wrestling people, a lot of wrestling fans? So if you don't agree with me, Carlos, God damn it, buddy, I'm sorry, you're just wrong because you don't have a right to that opinion. That's stupid.
Or we can't talk. That's even stupider.
Right.
So that's where I see that coming in. I don't know that either guy's wrong. quite frankly. And I'm not just splitting the fence here. Why JR don't want to commit because he likes both guys. I've known Meltzer for 30 years and Cornette as well. So I've got a long time with these guys, and I hope that I hope that they patch all that stuff up. We don't need the bullshit. The business doesn't need the bullshit. We get maligned enough with us creating our own controversies in an underbelly type thing. I just don't agree with that whatsoever.
Well, Jim, this is the problem with today in wrestling. The reason it's difficult for it to become more popular is anytime there's a show or anytime something happens, it's just a very toxic environment online with the discussions. Like literally, how could you be a wrestling fan? Like, if you're a fan of wrestling, how would you choose sides?
It's society.
Of which organization, and the other one's terrible. And this, it's weird. It's a very weird mindset that these fans have these days.
It's like this goddamn virus.